Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Finding Solutions. I'm Dan Albus, the Member of Parliament for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by two current members of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia, representing mainly the Kelowna areas, people who are right in the middle of the decision and debates shaping our province. So today, I'm very happy to have Gavin MLA for Kelowna Mission.
Thanks for having me.
And Kristina Loewen, MLA for Kelowna Centre. I'd like to just say that we're going to be focusing on the recently concluded spring legislative session. Now, what it means for your voters and for the province, and where things may be headed next, always with an eye towards finding solutions. Now, before we get into formally asking some questions, let's just do a quick rapid fire. So, Gavin, favorite color?
Black.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
KFC or Arby's?
KFC.
Okay, same questions. Favorite color?
Blue, of course.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
And KFC or Arby's?
Have to be honest, KFC.
Okay, well, we'll just take a moment now just to take a moment of silence for Arby's fans in the Okanagan, because unfortunately they've closed up. But anyway, let me start by asking, how are you both doing after what seemed to be an incredibly busy session?
Good. So trying to rest up a little, get prepared for the season in the constituency, getting back into the office vibe, I guess, and getting reconnected here on the ground is really, really good. So yeah, it was quite a session. So I'm excited to be home though.
Great.
Yeah, for me, it's very much the same. It's catching up on constituency work, but also making sure that I'm spending time with my family, with my kids. You're away a lot, as obviously we all know. In this job more than anybody realizes, and you come home and you realize that there's certain things you can't remember where they are in your kitchen. Your children have to remind you of their names. They've grown 6 inches, and they're really keen to get some good quality time with Daddy. So I've been trying to just get in that family time, catch up, and make plans for the summer to really make sure that I'm doing all I can to be there for them as a dad.
Great. Well, I know that this spring session apparently had some midnight plus sittings. It had a lot of consternation and debate, and some personal clashes here and there on all sorts of things. But so I'd like us to talk about that session, and maybe we'll put it into 3 parts. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Who wants to go first on the good?
Oh my gosh, on the good.
You go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So on the good, I'd say the most positive thing about the session was the interim and the interim leader. I think Trevor Halford did a really great job of managing caucus and handling the media, just everything. And I think it was a good, we were kind of in a holding pattern, knowing that we had an election and we're waiting for a new leader. And it was a good holding pattern. And there was a lot of bonding amongst members, I'd say. And I got a roommate personally as another fellow MLA, so that's a real big positive. And you referenced midnight sessions. We did have one 4 a.m. session. I know I got the distinction of speaking from 2:10 a.m. to 2:40 a.m. I did not have as much energy as I thought I would at that time. And then we did an hour of standing votes till 4 a.m. So that was interesting. So I guess I'm going into the bad. So I guess I better turn it over to Gavin.
Sure. For me, the real positive, I would echo what Kristina said. I thought we were really high functioning over the course of that spring session. Trevor Halford and the team that he put around him, some new staff we brought in and so forth, just did an incredible job of making sure that we were firing on all cylinders. I think it was really effective in terms of internal teamwork. It was really effective in terms of our external communications. I thought we were doing really, really well in the legislature, in question period, in debate on bills, and I think that we definitely gelled very much as a team, and I'm really, really proud of that. I think Trevor's done a great job of laying a foundation that Carrie Lynn Finley is going to be able to build on as she takes over as our new leader.
Well, as you know, the federal Conservatives, we've had interim leaders before, and one former interim leader told me that it's really being the leader in the interim, because you're asked to make a lot of decisions, not just for the team today, but also to set things so you're the new incumbent leader who has a new mandate can hit the ground running. So congratulations to Trevor and team, particularly Ali Blades. Just a quick shout out to Ali, who I know has been working very hard to make that happen. Okay, so we had the good. Now let's talk about the bad. Who wants to go first?
You can go first this time.
Sure. I mean, I think we saw this spring session, we saw some really challenging times for British Columbia, particularly the debate around DRIPA. I mean, the Premier had 6 different positions on what's called DRIPA, the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. He talked about repealing it. He changed his mind. He couldn't figure out where he stood. I think an incredible amount of economic uncertainty was created for British Columbians over the course of the spring because the government just has lost the plot when it comes to protecting private property and making sure that we have the stability and confidence for people to be able to invest in BC. So, really substantively a tough time for British Columbia, not just tough in the legislature, but really serious implications of that debate, of that loss of focus, that loss of confidence by the government. We're in a really, really challenging place as a province, and we saw that just up close and personal, where new developments, new news, new revelations, new court cases were playing out, in real time, in question period, every single day. And I think that's really, really challenging for British Columbia as a whole in terms of our ability to rebuild our economic confidence and to convince people that this is a place that they should invest.
So again, this was the first time we actually saw some cracks in the NDP caucus because again, they do have a majority, but not by very much. So on DRIPA, that certainly was something noteworthy. What would you say as well, Kristina?
For the bad? I mean, I can echo Gavin for sure on DRIPA. I mean, there's so much where we feel as an opposition party and as the public, I think, where we're just going the wrong direction. And I think for me, I would have to say, the biggest thing is the failure of the NDP to move forward on implementing significant new legislation around crime and intimate partner violence. Those are 2 things that I was really focused on. And I feel that they're failing to meet the public where the public's at, and they're not making significant changes, even though we're begging for it. And I think we've been very strong as an opposition on asking for those things too.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll give Mr. Eby a little bit of credit because he did, and I think this is something we all agree, because from British Columbia, a big part of our economy is forestry. And he's been saying that Ottawa, particularly Mark Carney, has not been giving as much time and attention to that. And I've been asking the questions whether or not softwood lumber will be part of the formal CUSMA review process. Because if it's not there, like these other industries, it's quite possible that it'll just get left behind. And BC, I don't think, can take that.
Dan, just on that, I would say one of the challenges of this session was that the huge focus on DRIPA meant we weren't talking about issues like that as much as we should have. We were not able to shift the focus to some of those key economic issues. And I'd say, to your point, I appreciate Premier Eby standing up and talking about that, but I would also say, from our perspective, we think that the Premier has really marginalized British Columbia from the grown-up table of Confederation because of the very childish attitude he's taken around things like pipelines and major projects. It really feels as if he has diminished the role of British Columbia in Confederation and made it harder for us to extract those kinds of concessions and that kind of support from the federal government because he is so unwilling to play ball on projects of national significance that would help to strengthen our whole economy.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Okay, now the ugly. Who wants to go there?
You go ahead.
Yeah, okay, for ugly. Well, I'm just going to start with the fact that I did the ugly cry in the legislature while I asked a question. And it's because the topic is really ugly and really sad. And I'll say the ugly was the day that we asked questions about the Mental Health Act and inviting families to be part of the care. That's something that we've been championing as an opposition party. And my understanding is the government said, hey, we're going to actually do this. And so we withdrew a bill to give them the opportunity to do this. And we're a year later and they've not done it. So the day I'm referring to was about a month ago when we asked a lot of questions about individuals who were in the mental health care, under the care of the health ministry when they were discharged from the hospital or left and were found to be deceased or something, within hours, within a day of being discharged or leaving care. And so it was a very emotional day. Honestly, I did do the ugly cry, and I don't know how I feel about that, but I will tell you that what was really raw and real was that all of the ladies in the front row who asked questions, every single one of us has lost loved ones to mental health, suicide or addiction at one time or another. And so it was very, very upsetting. And what you saw was not theater, it was raw and real.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, these issues, it's people, and sometimes it's heartbreaking when you hear those stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for that, Gavin.
Yeah, I would obviously just commend Kristina and others in our caucus who really led on that file. I think we've really, over the last months, I think we've been really strong in terms of advocating around some of those issues that are very emotional and hit close to home, whether it's intimate partner violence, mental health, those issues. I'm really proud of our team and the way we've handled those. For me, maybe on a slightly less serious note, the ugly was just the tone. It's very clear that this is an NDP government that knows they're circling the drain. They know they've lost the plot on the big and substantive issues that are affecting our province, including DRIPA. And as a result, the amount of just very infantile lashing out that we hear, the amount of just attempts to provoke, to introduce conflict around very childish issues when we should be having serious conversations about serious issues, that to me was ugly. I mean, I was on the receiving end of a very silly attack where I got delayed on a flight through Calgary home to Kelowna. My baggage got lost, and I was forced to go on Zoom for 5 minutes to vote while wearing a hoodie. And that turned into a ridiculous level of focus from the Premier on criticizing my attire. But it was, to me, that was a dumb, silly story, but it was more just indicative of the very personal tone which we have seen over the course of the session. We're seeing it now in reaction to Carrie Lynn Findlay coming in as our new leader. Look, we're in a really serious time. We're facing really serious issues as a province. We need a premier and a government that is prepared to have grown-up debate with us as the official opposition, not to engage in these puerile attacks and these attempts to turn everything into just a culture war. We really need to be able to have serious conversations. I think the people of British Columbia deserve that. I know that's what we're going to be focused on under our new leader, and I hope that the NDP will grow up and start focusing on what really matters to everyday people and families.
Yeah, absolutely. When you just look at Claire Rattay getting kicked out of the chamber, the fact that the Premier was goading, saying that Conservatives like her didn't support Pacific LNG as a project. I'm sorry, she's from Kitimat. She was on the council that welcomed Pacific.
Yeah, Dan, that was so shocking, and that was I think it was Pacific or LNG Canada. Claire was such a strong advocate and remains such a strong advocate for our natural gas sector. I worked on the Trans Mountain expansion project for a number of years. We've got folks like Kyle Giddens and Trevor Halford and Larry Neufeld and others that come from our resource sector and that have long histories, both in the private sector and in politics, fighting for our natural resource sector and for the jobs, the family supporting jobs that come from those sectors. To have the Premier get up there and pretend that somehow we are opposed to the resource sector was absolutely comical. When you look at the history that the NDP has of fighting the Trans Mountain pipeline with every tool in the toolbox, of opposing LNG, of opposing Site C, and of generally undermining and degrading our resource economy, I just found it absolutely comical that they thought they could stand up and start attacking people from our caucus who have the scars to prove their own histories in supporting our resource sector. I just found that absolutely comical.
Well, let's close on the ugly section here, and let's bring it maybe to a happier subject. Let's bring it a little closer to home. What are some of the local issues that you both raised in the House? Maybe even saw some progress or some acknowledgement by the government, or maybe even some resolution during this particular session that I think your constituents would want to know about.
Yeah, I can take that to start. Well, one thing, and we got some minor victory on it, but one thing was we're coming up to the 1-year anniversary of Bailey McCourt's death, July 4th. And so 2 days before session ended, I had a motion on the papers and was planning to bring a motion that day. It was Tuesday, the 26th, I believe. And I had family members from the McCourt family there with me. And I had Laura Gover's friends present as well. they were, Laura Gover was killed in Saanich and by an intimate partner as well. So we were ready to table this motion, and for procedural reasons weren't able to. But I was able to give a very powerful 2-minute statement on victim impact and, essentially raising the value that, often when there is an intimate partner homicide, it leaves children orphaned and really affects an entire community and families. And it was very impactful. And so I think we've done a really good job about raising awareness about that issue. And sadly, the government thought the best that they could do was to table the Kim Stanton report, which was done 1.5 years ago. So that was their big move for the families that day. But I think, again, it shows just their lack of willingness to move quickly and to move efficiently and to do something that's significant and substantial for these families. And, they know what we're asking for, and it's not difficult, and they hold the keys, and they're still not doing it. One big win, though, was the families did get to connect with the public safety minister, and she did express a favorable opinion, I guess, towards GPS monitoring and with victim alerts, which is great. And I know the family raised the value of that. And the fact that in Spain and Portugal, when that's employed properly, they've had 0 deaths with that. So
okay.
It's huge, staggering data. It's very convincing. So that was a big win. All on the last Tuesday of session.
Anyway, well, that's some
Yeah.
positive news. Absolutely,
Really
the
positive.
community, I'm sure, is going to be very happy to hear
Yeah.
that. Gavin, what would you say?
Yeah, I'll just for a moment reflect on what strong advocates Bailey McCourt's family have been for her
Absolutely.
legacy. Christina's done incredible work. I've been happy to help as well, but Christina's been like a dog with a bone, continuing to push on this. She's been really persistent within our caucus and in the legislature, making sure that we keep moving forward. And I also would just say, Dan, obviously, our federal counterparts, Frank Caputo and others, have been really strong as well in terms of that federal advocacy. So I think that's something we can all be very proud of. In terms of items that I was able to push forward, we saw some success around short-term rental. We were able to get the government to move forward the opt-out date to enable us to hopefully help our tourism sector by allowing short-term rental to return significantly earlier than it otherwise would have under the existing short-term rental regulation and legislation. So that was definitely a win. I would like to have seen that earlier, but I'm happy to have seen significant progress on that part. We made a big push around KGH. We continue to push on that, and an issue I'm proud to have brought attention to is the fact that we've got up to 50 people in hallway beds, and we've got 50 or 55 rooms, beds worth of space, 33,000 square feet, that has not been opened on the 5th and 6th floors of KGH. So I was proud to draw attention to that, and I believe we're starting to see some momentum around getting that space open and making sure that patients get care, the level of care, the level of privacy and dignity that they deserve. And then I'll just add, in the last week or so of the session, I was also able to draw attention to some issues around school safety. Obviously, in the almost 4 months since the Tumbler Ridge tragedy, there's been a lot of focus put on the issue of school safety, and we unfortunately had a recent knife attack at Spring Valley School here in Kelowna, which there were some real concerns around the way in which that response rolled out, the communication to parents, and seemingly the lack of progress by the province in advancing more action around safety in schools. Parents need to be able to know that their kids are safe when they send them to school, and I think that confidence was obviously shaken by the tragedy at Tumbler Ridge. I think the way in which that was handled was very appropriate and classy and nonpartisan as that tragedy played out. But 4 months later, we need to be able to have hard conversations about what has and has not been done to make sure that our kids are safe, and that Spring Valley situation definitely drew attention to that and raised some concerns. So I'm going to continue to ask questions around that until parents can have confidence that their kids are safe.
So Gavin's always one step ahead, because I was saying, okay, what had some resolution? My next question was, what still needs to be done? So the fact that you got action on the short-term rentals, that's great. But Kristina, for yourself, what's an issue that is still outstanding for you as an MLA, and what steps could be done to help with that?
Yeah, good question. So downtown, and of course I represent the downtown area, and my office is right by City Park. huge issues with crime and safety. We can still walk downtown any given day and walk by a couple of broken windows, people smoking crack, cooking crack, that sort of thing. It's a huge issue that I've raised. We did a town hall in January, and then the federal guys, yourself included, came in and did another town hall in February, January, February, or February, March, whatever. Anyhow, and so we've been really doing well at raising those issues, but I think we're just seeing far too little movement again on the current governments federally and provincially. So I know you guys have been asking for keeping offenders in jail. We're asking for the same thing, especially those repeat offenders that are wasting so many resources. And then the other side of it that's very provincial is the treatment aspect. So much of what goes on downtown is addiction and mental health related. And without significant treatment and significant intervention, and some form of involuntary compassionate care or mandatory compassionate, whatever you want to call it, we're still not seeing the government do enough in that regards. The good news is the public narrative has changed a lot. The public conversation has changed a lot. A couple years ago when we were in our election, people were a little bit nervous about that involuntary aspect. And now there's a lot more appetite for it because people are I think, just realizing that it's not compassionate to leave our loved ones suffering. And those people on the streets, they're not wanting to do these things. They're not wanting to necessarily be dangerous or, a nuisance or whatever. They're not wanting to live like that. So we need to see a lot more movement in that regard.
Well, it's a critical discussion, and I know both parties, both leaders in the last election provincially had made commitments on voluntary care. So I can imagine it to be very frustrating when you don't see sufficient action.
Yes.
And Gavin, I also know that a lot of the issues that Kristina touched on in the downtown, it's also, I read stories after stories in local media about Rutland. I know you had a town hall out there. Maybe you could just give us an update on that.
Yeah, you bet, Dan. We had more than 200 people come out to a town hall in Rutland. The issues that we're facing are very similar in the downtown and in Rutland, and frankly in areas across the province. People are frustrated. They're at their wits' end. Small businesses are feeling the impact, and residents are feeling the impact. As Kristina said, I think we're all tired of Band-Aid solutions. We know we need to go upstream and try to catch people before they fall in the water instead of trying to get them out of the water once they're far downstream. I think some of that is about upstream intervention and prevention, and a huge part, as Kristina rightly alluded to, is involuntary care. The Oliver Penitentiary is sitting at 25% utilization. It's at 25% utilization in part because charge rates are down 42% over the last 5 years here in Kelowna. So people that ought to be arrested, charged, and put into a penitentiary are not there. And we've got a large vacant space open where we could be making sure that we're getting people off the streets with mandatory care so they can get clean. There is, as Kristina said, there's no compassion in leaving people struggling. And when they've lost control of their lives, sometimes you need strong intervention to make sure you're getting people off the streets. So we got to get that involuntary care open. We've got to get Kelowna the Crown prosecutors that it needs. We're short 7 or even 10 Crown prosecutors. We've not been able to process people with the expediency that we should. And as a result, we're seeing a revolving door on our streets of individuals who are prolific property offenders and are not going to jail, and of individuals who are frankly dying 3 times a week, being brought back with naloxone, suffering significant brain injuries from non-fatal drug overdoses, and as a result, they're losing brain function. I actually brought forward a private member's bill a couple of months ago to make some tweaks to the Mental Health Act around the definitions of mental illness in order to include brain injuries, because we have a whole range of people there's challenges in terms of getting treatment because of some of those definitions and some of that lack of clarity. So if we can just start getting a really fulsome understanding of the role that brain injury is playing, along with mental health, addictions, homelessness, street crime, start making that a bigger part of the conversation, I think that can actually go a long way toward alleviating some of the challenges that we're seeing on the street and treating people with compassion.
Well, and that's the hardest part for the RCMP, because they want to enforce the law, but obviously if you have someone with a mental illness or with a drug addiction or the combination of both of them, and it can be very frustrating because incarceration doesn't work, and certainly when they drop them off at the hospital, and they're released the next day because there's not someone to do an evaluation, it can be very frustrating. So, well, I trust both of you will continue to do what you can. And of course, we always share information. So there's a federal component too. Now, let's maybe change gears a little bit. There's also been a major change in your party recently. We talked a little bit about it earlier, moving from an interim to now. Carrie Lynn Finley has won the Conservative leadership. She's used to be a colleague of mine. So Carrie Lynn, congratulations. I know you've worked hard with you and your team. But let's talk about the vibe that was in caucus after the first meeting you had with the new leader.
Yeah, I think it was a really positive vibe. The folks are looking forward together. One of the things that I think is so important is that we had a lot of conversations among caucus members before the leadership. And there were so many good conversations where we reminded one another that this was a family tug of war, not a civil war. We're all in this together. Like right here in the region, I supported Peter Millibar, Kristina supported Caroline Elliott, Macklin McCall supported Carrie Lynn Finley, and that didn't change our relationship at all. We remained colleagues who work well together. When you walk down the hallways of our caucus offices over the last number of months, you didn't walk down the hallways and go, oh, that person's supporting somebody else. That's not really ever how it felt in caucus. It felt as if we all understood that we're playing for the same team. This is a practice game. This is about how we get ready for the big game. And in the big game, our opponent is the NDP. And our objective is to defeat them. And what's at stake is the future of the province. So we can't afford to allow, bitterness over things that happen in the warm-up game to affect our performance in the big match. And that's really how I think we're going forward. There was a lot of hugs exchanged on Saturday night at the leadership selection event. I'd say we all came out of caucus feeling as though there's a path forward. And knowing that what we have to be focused on is making sure that we're demonstrating that we are a serious adult government in waiting, that the people of British Columbia can look to for safe change after almost a decade of the NDP running this province into the ground.
I'm really happy to hear you say that, Gavin, because again, everyone works really hard. They care about a particular leader and the direction and their principles. And but again, like you said, part of a team, and it's all part about coming together to offer British Columbian an alternative in the next election, right? A government in waiting. So I'm really happy to hear that. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say similar vibe. It's nice to be out of that interim holding pattern that I referenced earlier, and we know who the leader is now, and now we can start to look forward. And I really appreciated that about Carrie Lynn as well. At our first meeting, she was able to articulate a clear vision for the future and show that she's going to be a strong leader that can guide us and steer us in the right direction while still being very collaborative. And I love that. And her first move was to meet with each and every one of us one-on-one, which I really appreciate because I think it's very important when you're leading something to know your people. So some of us have had that meeting. I understand some people are still waiting, but yeah, she's going to get through everyone.
Well, it's a big caucus.
Yeah, it is. And I really appreciate that. So.
Well, good. Now, well, speaking about leadership, how would you describe, I know it doesn't matter who goes first on this, how would you describe Premier David Eby's position right now?
Ooh.
Tenuous. I mean, what I would say is this. I think the people of British Columbia are done with David Eby, and his legacy is ashes. There is nothing that he has set his mind to that he hasn't messed up. He insisted that he was going to single-handedly fix the downtown east side of Vancouver. It's worse. He insisted that he was going to fix housing. It's worse. He insisted that he was going to fix reconciliation, and he has set reconciliation back by a decade or a generation and completely destabilized private property rights in our province. So I think at this point, there's not much of a legacy for him to hang on to. I think he's clearly done with the public. The public is done with him, and I'd say I anticipate that he will not continue as leader of his party for long.
Okay. So, Kristina, there's obviously Gavin's raised a number of the issues that have really tested David Eby. I mentioned earlier some of the cracks that were forming his caucus. We have a budget, huge deficit. There's a lot of economic uncertainty, and of course, questions tied to policies like DRIPA. So given that, what do you see next? Will we see a fall sitting, or is there possibility of an election so that David Eby can kind of keep his people behind him? Because that's one thing he can do. He can call for an election at any time.
Well, nobody has a crystal ball, so we don't know. But I think the thought is there won't be a false sitting if things continue to go poorly for him. I think there's any number of possibilities we could go to an election, although right now they're not polling well, so I don't think they would. And then the other thing is they could go to an election for a new leader in their party, so I think we're kind of anticipating that, but we don't know. Like Gavin said, when you have people, and I know I've had this experience, come up to you in the airport or on the street and say they've always voted NDP, but they can't vote NDP this time, they can't vote for EV, it's over. So
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at.
So do you think it's at the point, Gavin, where either it's an election or the NDP simply just say they're going to take a page out of the federal playbook like they did, the federal Liberals did with Justin Trudeau, and find a new leader?
I think there's a very real possibility they go into a leadership race. There are obviously members of the NDP caucus who have been positioning themselves for some time. There's been chatter for some time about the fact that David Eby has lost his mojo. I think he's gambling for resurrection right now by trying to talk a big game over the last few days. But I think, frankly, his time is probably done. I think what David Eby has to hope for is that we are divided, and what we must do is be united. And when I've been out talking to people over the last few days since our leadership race concluded, the most predominant message that I hear from almost everyone I talk to is that we want you guys to be united. We want you guys to be strong. We want you guys to work together. We need you to be a government in waiting. We need you to defeat the NDP. We need you to win. That's what people are asking us to do. They're asking us to be focused on the issues that British Columbians are focused on the economy, on public safety, on healthcare, on the cost of living, on those kinds of issues. They want us to be a serious, sober, mature government in waiting, and that is what we must do. We have to, British Columbians are hungry for change. We have to offer them safe change that they can feel confidence in, average, everyday British Columbians that don't wake up every morning and think about politics can comfortably go into a ballot box and tick the box beside conservative and know that the future is going to be better than today is.
Well, that's great. Well, we've talked about all the different issues that you've been working on locally for your constituents, so I thank you for that work. But maybe what we'll do is just give you the final say here. Maybe you can speak directly to your constituents and tell them what is important to you right now and how best they can contact you.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so what's most important to me right now is this where I'm supposed to be looking? Yes. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Is that that I'm here for you. And one of my greatest joys in this job has been to be able to bring your words into the legislature and actually ask questions that you want asked of the government. So very important that you know that I'm here working for you. My office is located right by City Park, easy to find. And my email, kristina.loewen.mla@ledge.bc.ca, easy to find. You can Google it. I'm also really active on social media, and it is still me doing most of my own posts and replying to people. But I do ask that if you have an issue that you want to meet about in person, that you also email my office so that we have, so that you don't get lost, because I get a lot of messages. But yeah, most important that I'm here for you, and I'll see you at a lot of events this summer.
Great. Gavin?
Yeah, I would say very similarly. It's a little bit like I said to my kids, guys, Daddy's not going to be traveling as much, and I'm going to see a lot more of you. I would say the same thing, to folks here in Kelowna. I think we're excited to be back from the legislature, to be able to spend more time in the community, more time catching up on meetings, catching up on issues, making sure that we're getting the latest on what's happening, and that we're able to help people to navigate what they're dealing with government, whether it's very small or whether it's very big. I would say we have incredible opportunity in front of us here in Kelowna. We've got a bunch of really amazing events and amazing things happening here, but we're also facing challenges. We just had the Statistics Canada labor force report come out this morning, and we're at 9% unemployment, which is the highest in the country. So we're facing some challenges, and what I would say to people is to hang on, to be strong, and to know that better is coming. We're going to keep doing the work that we have been doing to try to make things better under this government, but I also want folks to know that we are continuing to do the work of building a strong team and a strong plan to get BC back on track and to make sure that we can really, really get our economy going strong again. If we have that, that gives us the opportunity to build in our community. It gives us the opportunity to deliver the public services that we all want, and it gives us the opportunity to build a better life for our children and grandchildren. So just know that we're dedicated to that belief that British Columbia is full of limitless potential, Kelowna is full of limitless potential, and we're going to do our utmost over the months and years ahead to unlock that potential. So look forward to seeing all of you around town over the next weeks and months, and don't be shy in the coffee shop line or the grocery store or at the events. We definitely love chatting with folks, whether we've met you 1,000 times before or never met before. We'll see you around.
Yeah, and I just want to thank both of you, Kristina Loewen, MLA for Kelowna Centre, Gavin Dew, MLA for Kelowna Mission, both very hardworking. And I also will just put a plug in for the grocery store tap on the shoulder.
Yes.
Some of the best conversations I have are when you're just waiting in line, and that's what it's all about. It's about being in our communities, learning about what the issues are, and making sure we represent them. Mm-hmm. So thank you for the work you do. Enjoy your summer.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dan.
Dan.
So we'll see you on the next episode of Finding Solutions with Dan Albus, and appreciate that if you did like today's episode, please share it with a friend or a loved one. Take care.